The stars shimmered quietly in the Kepler nebula when the human fleet emerged. 12 small vessels drifted slowly through the void, their metallic hulls glinting under distant suns. Against the vast emptiness, they seemed fragile and tiny. Admiral Kyung-ho stood on the bridge of the UES Harmony, watching bright waves of gas drift like painted clouds. He was calm, with gray hair and gentle eyes. Around him, his crew worked with quiet precision, the bridge hushed like a library where even whispers felt too loud. "Sir, unusual readings," reported Commander Dowie from the tactical console. Young but sharp, he never trusted a single scan without checking it twice. "Massive ships inbound, very massive." Kyung-ho stepped forward, gazing at the screen. The display filled with moving dots, multiplying rapidly as sensors caught more signatures. Soon, red markers crowded the entire grid, rushing directly at the human formation. "How many?" Kyung-ho asked. "Over 300, sir. Far larger than us." Dowie's tone stayed steady, though his hands moved swiftly over controls. "Contact in 10 minutes." Aboard the Resilience, Captain Sora witnessed the same sight. Small in stature with keen eyes that missed nothing, she commanded the ship built to shield the rest. "All crew to battle stations," she ordered, her voice calm, not fearful, like someone preparing for an important day's work. Her officers moved quickly, without panic. They had trained for this moment, even if they prayed it would never come. Humanity had explored the stars for barely half a century, always knowing one day they would meet others. On the science vessel Discovery, Commander Wu Jin felt a strange thrill as the alien fleet appeared. A thinker who cherished knowledge, he could not help but be excited despite the threat. "Begin full recording," he told his science team. "This could be the most important day in human history." At her station, Dr. Bo captured readings of the advancing armada. A specialist in alien behavior, she noted how the enemy ships moved. They flew in flawless formations, like predators trying to intimidate their prey. Then the aliens arrived, blotting out the stars like a thunderstorm. Their vessels were massive, armored in gray metal and bristling with weapons. The smallest dwarfed even Earth's largest ship, while the greatest among them rivaled floating cities. At their center loomed a monstrous flagship of black steel, spiked and glowing with crimson light. This fortress belonged to Supreme Commander Vexthul of the Valaran Empire. Vexthul was tall and gaunt, with violet skin and 4 arms, a veteran of 2 centuries of conquests. None had ever stood against the Valarans, lords of 10,000 star systems. To every species they found, the choice had been submission or annihilation. "These are the newcomers?" Vexthul asked, his voice grinding like stone on steel. "Yes, Supreme Commander," replied his second. "They call themselves humans. Our scouts found them 3 days ago in the Outer Rim." The alien commander studied the human fleet on his display. So small, so smooth in design, so unlike the harsh, jagged warships he knew. To him, they looked like toys. 12 ships against 300, he said with something like laughter. "Bravery or foolishness, we shall see." He activated his comms, his words translated into human speech by advanced systems. "Unknown vessels, you trespass within Valaran territory. Surrender at once and prepare to be boarded. Resist, and you will be destroyed." On the Harmony, Communication Officer Nar glanced at Admiral Kyung-ho as the message ended. A cheerful young woman, fluent in many tongues, she quipped, "Well, they don't waste time, do they?" Kyung-ho smiled, not out of fear, nor to mask concern, but with genuine amusement, as though life's complexities were simply fascinating. "Open a channel," he said. "Let me speak with them." Nar tapped her console, and Kyung-ho's voice echoed across the alien fleet. "Greetings," he said warmly. "I am Admiral Kyung-ho of the United Earth Fleet. We come in peace and friendship. We are explorers, not warriors. It would honor us to meet you and learn of your people. On the Valaran flagship, Vexthal frowned in confusion. The human leader sounded less like a man facing annihilation and more like a host welcoming guests to supper. "Did he just say greetings?" Vexthal's aide asked. "I believe so, Supreme Commander. He mentioned peace and friendship. In his long career, Vexthal had faced species who begged, who fought, or who fled, but never one who greeted him like an old friend." "Perhaps their translators are faulty," he muttered. "Repeat the message. Make it unmistakable." This time, his voice thundered across the void. "Imperial Navy. Our weapons can reduce your vessels to dust." On the Discovery, Commander Wu Jin studied the alien fleet through his instruments. At his side, Engineer Haijin, young, brilliant, and unmatched in technical skill, was already analyzing their warships. "Their designs are ancient," she murmured. "Ancient? How so?" Wu Jin asked. "They haven't changed in centuries. The Valarans simply kept replicating the same ships without innovation." Meanwhile, aboard the Harmony, Admiral Keong Ho prepared his reply to the renewed threat. He looked across the bridge, meeting the calm gazes of his crew. None looked frightened. If anything, they appeared curious. "Nar, reopen the channel," he ordered. "This is Admiral Keong Ho once again." His voice echoed across the stars. "We recognize your great power and respect it, but we do not seek battle, nor do we intend to take from you. We are explorers, and perhaps we could share words as civilized beings rather than threats." Deep within the engine room, Engineer Tai Min listened with a smile forming across his weathered face. An older man with rough hands and a mind as sharp as ever, he had built much of the technology keeping the ships alive. "Chief, why are you smiling?" one of his assistants asked. "Because," Tai Min replied, adjusting his readouts, "they have no idea what they're truly facing." On the Velaron flagship, Supreme Commander Vexthal grew irritated. The humans weren't behaving like any conquered race. They should be trembling. They should be pleading. Instead, they spoke of friendship, like this was a social meeting, not a confrontation with the strongest military in the galaxy. "Commander," his tactical officer reported, "I am detecting unusual energy signatures from the human ships. Their technology does not match anything in our records." "Impossible," Vexthal snapped. "They are primitives. How could they wield systems beyond our comprehension?" But unease crept into his thoughts. Centuries of war had taught him to read fear, and these humans radiated none. That, more than their words, unsettled him. The void between fleets grew heavy with silence. On his screen, Vexthal watched the 12 small ships floating peacefully, as if they were enjoying a stroll in a park rather than facing annihilation. "Conduct a deep scan," he commanded his science officer. "I want every detail of their weaponry." The Valaran scanners swept the human fleet for long minutes, beams probing across the ships. When the data returned, it left the alien bridge stunned. "Supreme Commander," the science officer said slowly. "Their energy patterns are unrecognizable. Entirely new power signatures. Their hulls appear to be shifting at a molecular level. It is as if their vessels are alive." For the first time in 2 centuries of conquests, Vexthal felt cold in his stomach. On the Discovery, Engineer Haijin watched her own console with amusement. Alien scans were bouncing off the adaptive hulls of their ships. "They're confused," she told Wu Jin with a grin. "Our vessels adjust their structure depending on the situation. To them, it must look like our ships are living organisms." "Should we clarify?" Wu Jin asked. "Let them wonder," Haijin replied. "Confusion might do them good." Human starships were not built to be merely strong. They were built to be clever. Their hulls hardened under attack, softened to absorb impact, and their engines reconfigured themselves depending on the space around them. To Valaran eyes, it was indistinguishable from sorcery. On the Harmony, Communication Officer Nar struggled to maintain dialogue. Every human phrase meant as reassurance was twisted by the alien translation systems into menace. When Captain Sora had said, "We humans love a challenge," hoping to convey mankind's love of problem-solving, their computers translated it as, "Humans love to assault strong enemies." When Admiral Kyung-ho explained, "We adapt to every situation," trying to emphasize their resilience, the Valarans heard, "Humans always find a way to destroy their foes." Nar pored over the translation logs, recognizing the distortion. But she had no solution. Their systems were designed for a military empire that only understood threats. The Valarans had only ever known conquest and submission. Words like cooperation or friendship did not exist in their language. "Admiral," Nar said softly, "I think they are misinterpreting everything we send. Their translators twist our kindness into threats." Kyung-ho nodded. "Keep trying. Perhaps we can break through." But on the Valaran flagship, Supreme Commander Vexthul's unease grew with each human transmission. To his ears, the newcomers sounded as though they boasted of their ability to fight and adapt. And worse, their ships carried technologies his scientists could not decipher. "Supreme Commander," his tactical officer announced, "the human vessels are moving." It was true. The human fleet had begun spreading out, not in retreat, but as if preparing for something. Captain Sora shifted the Resilience into a protective stance before the rest. Commander Wu Jin maneuvered the Discovery to secure cleaner sensor readings of the enemy. To Valaran eyes, these movements looked like the forming of battle lines. "They're preparing to strike," Vexthul concluded. "So few ships, and yet they dare. They must conceal some secret weapon." On the Discovery, Dr. Borum was busy with biological scans of the alien crews. The data startled her. "Commander," she told Wu Jin, "their stress levels are rising, elevated heart rates, chemical signs of fear." "Fear? But they outnumber us 300 to 12. "That is precisely why they're frightened," Borum explained. "They expect an easy victory, yet something about us unsettles them. They cannot explain it, and that terrifies them." She was right. The Valarans had forged their empire through intimidation and overwhelming power. Most species surrendered instantly at the sight of their fleets, or were annihilated in moments. For more than a century, the Valarans had not fought a real war. They had forgotten what it meant to face an opponent they did not understand. Meanwhile, humanity behaved as if everything was routine. In the Harmony's engine room, Engineer Tommen made subtle adjustments to the systems. His assistants, Yongsu and Yunb, worked alongside him, checking levels and calibrating controls. "Should we activate defenses?" Yongsu asked. "Already. Done," Tommen replied calmly. Quietly, though. No sense in making our new friends more nervous. Human defensive technology was unlike the thick armor and brute force shields of other races. Their ships bent space itself, causing incoming fire to miss by fractions. They absorbed hostile energy, redirecting it to strengthen their own systems. To alien scanners, these defenses appeared as nothing at all. Pilot Jay Sun, one of the youngest, in the fleet, sat at the controls of his nimble fighter. He loved flying, always testing new ways to move in the void. At the moment, he was running through sharp maneuvers just to stay sharp. Valaran instruments tracked his movements in disbelief. His fighter turned faster than its mass allowed, accelerated beyond its engine's capacity. By their science, such motion was impossible. "How is that craft moving like this?" Vexthul demanded. "Unknown, Supreme Commander. Their propulsion defies standard physics." On the Harmony's bridge, Navigator Me updated star charts with fresh readings of the surrounding system. Something caught her attention. "Admiral," she reported, "we're near unusual stellar phenomena. Quantum fluctuations, gravitational distortions all through this region." "Hazardous?" Kyung-ho asked. "Not for us. Our ships can adapt. But older technology could struggle here." Kyung-ho understood at once. The humans had chosen this sector to explore because its strange physics might reveal new truths about the universe. For the Valarans, however, this region was hostile ground where their massive fleets might falter. And so, the misunderstandings deepened further. When Dr. Geit, the fleet psychologist, suggested that both sides might gain from cultural exchange, the Valaran computers interpreted it as both sides will suffer from violent conflict. When intelligence, Officer Su Young remarked that humans excel at creative problem-solving. The translation became humans excel at creating deadly traps. Supreme Commander Vexthul's patience snapped. These humans were far more dangerous than they appeared. Their ships moved in impossible ways. Their technology defied his experts, and every message sounded like a veiled threat wrapped in false talk of peace. Enough, he decided. Charge all. Weapons. If they wish to play, we will teach them the price of defiance. Sirens echoed across the Valaran fleet as 300 warships armed themselves. Planet-killing cannons began to hum, their cores glowing with lethal fire. Missile silos filled with warheads capable of splitting moons prepared to launch. On the human vessels, sensors lit with warnings of the hostile charge. Yet there was no fear, only smooth, efficient readiness. "Well," Admiral Kyung-ho said evenly, his smile undimmed. "So much for diplomacy. Let's show them what humanity can do when we focus." The Kepler Nebula flared crimson as hundreds of alien weapons reached full power. The Velaran fleet shone like a constellation of murderous stars, each promising destruction. Against this apocalyptic display, 12 small human ships floated, fragile and alone. Vexthul felt reassured. This was the order of the galaxy. Display, overwhelming force, and the enemy submits or dies. It had worked for 2 centuries. "Fire!" he commanded. The Valaran armada unleashed hell. A tidal wave of energy lanced through space, plasma bolts, beams brighter than suns, and swarms of guided missiles. The fury was so great it seemed as though lightning itself had been forged into weapons. On the Harmony, Admiral Kyung-ho watched the approaching storm with calm detachment. His crew moved like clockwork, their training unshaken. "Evasive maneuvers," he said softly. What followed shattered every Valaran belief about war. The human ships simply weren't there when the fire arrived. They hadn't dodged quickly, nor jumped to faster than light. One moment they faced certain death, then they were elsewhere. Captain Sora's resilience drifted through a colossal energy beam, as if it were light passing through glass, unharmed. Commander Wu Jin's Discovery was encircled by hundreds of missiles, until they abruptly reversed course, streaking back toward their origin. Young pilot Young's nimble fighter was trapped between 3 blazing beams, yet the energy flowed, around him like water around stone. "What is happening?" Vexthul demanded. "Sir, our targeting was flawless, but no damage registered. In some cases, our own weapons are turning back." The impossible repeated across his fleet. Beams bent aside, missiles turned traitor, and human ships flickered in and out like phantoms. In the Harmony's engine room, Chief Engineer Tammin and his assistants worked steadily. "Quantum uncertainty field stable," Yong-Su confirmed. "Gravitational lensing nominal," Yunbi added. Tammin smiled. "That's the beauty of human design. We don't resist the universe. We persuade it to behave differently." Human vessels didn't rely on brute armor or towering shields. They wove reality itself. They blurred across multiple locations, making every strike uncertain. They bent space-time so that beams curved away harmlessly. Quantum mechanics itself cloaked them in probabilities where no hit could ever be certain. On the Discovery, Engineer Hygen's hands danced across holographic controls, conducting the defenses like music. "Redirecting forward plasma intake," she said. "Returning half their own fire. We're not here to kill, only to teach." Human technology had been forged for exploration, not battle, built to navigate black holes and quantum storms. Ironically, those same systems made them nearly untouchable in combat. Navigator Me on the Harmony steered them through the nebula's warped physics. "Guiding us through the gravitational shear," she reported calmly. "They can't follow here." And indeed, Valeran ships faltered when they tried. Systems crashed, weapons failed, guidance vanished. The very phenomena that crippled them became safe currents for humanity. Meanwhile, Jung laughed with joy inside his fighter, weaving between towering warships. "This is incredible. They're huge and slow. It's like playing tag with skyscrapers." The D. Valeran ships, built for blunt confrontations, were powerful but clumsy. The humans, bred for discovery in hostile space, moved like dancers. Dr. Borum monitored alien crews as their fear spiked. Formations collapsed, captains panicked, and weapons fired blindly. "They're breaking," she told Wu Jin. "Their whole doctrine relies on overwhelming firepower. When that fails, they have nothing." Centuries of dominance had made the Valeran Empire arrogant. They had forgotten how it felt to face an enemy they could neither predict nor control. The Valarans had grown so accustomed to winning through fear that they had abandoned progress. Their vessels, their strategies, even their mindset had hardened into something rigid and predictable. Humanity, by contrast, had spent half a century breaking limits. Every Terran ship carried untested systems and clever fixes to impossible challenges. From the Harmony's command hub, strategic advisor Chan Wu observed the unfolding clash, calmly noting enemy habits and vulnerabilities. He was a man who liked to see the inner workings of things. "Admiral," he said to Kyung Ho, "they are not truly aiming to destroy us anymore. They are simply firing blindly, hoping fortune will save them." And indeed, formations, once precise, had collapsed into disorder. Captains improvised on instinct, yet none of it succeeded. In the medical bay, Hosak stood ready, though no human had been touched. Alien volleys could not land. "Shall I prepare for casualties?" he asked over comms. "Unlikely," Admiral Kung Ho answered. "Confusion makes them clumsy, not dangerous." Elsewhere, Engineer Sin toiled over alien energy signatures. She had devised a plan. "Admiral, I believe I can silence their weapons harmlessly," she reported. "Their systems are crude. A feedback wave will overload the grid without harm." "Proceed," Kyung Ho said. Invisible pulses drifted outward, striking the Valeran fleet. But instead of destruction, silence spread. Weapons dimmed across 300 warships, shutting down like weary machines going to rest. Aboard the flagship, Supreme Commander Vexthul stared as his armada became defenseless within seconds. Yet the humans did not strike. They merely drifted, serene, smiling across comms. "Sir," whispered his tactician, "our weapons are gone, our shields absent, engines at minimal output. We are utterly exposed." Never in his life had Vexthul felt such bewilderment. The strangers could annihilate his fleet without effort, yet chose only to deny the battle itself. Then Admiral Kyung Ho's voice echoed again, light and cordial. "Well, that was quite an exercise," he said. "Now that tempers are spent, shall we talk again? Friendship is still our preference." Vexthul, once master of the galaxy's most feared force, now realized a deeper terror than destruction. These humans were not just superior, they were better, and they still offered peace. For the first time in 2 centuries, he did not know how to respond. Vexthul sat frozen at his command chair, staring at the tactical display. His 300 warships, pride of an empire, now drifted as lifeless monuments, defeated not by fire but by 12 explorers. Silence blanketed the bridge, broken only by the hum of air systems. At last he spoke. "Open a priority channel to the High Council." His voice carried exhaustion. Minutes passed before holograms of the Valaran Council appeared, their violet faces proud with millennia of dominion over 10,000 systems. "Supreme Commander," intoned High Counselor Thrak. "Your report named a minor race. Why summon us in emergency?" Vexthul chose each word with care. "Honored counselors, the situation is unusual. The species is called human. Their technology surpasses ours in ways I cannot explain." "Impossible," snapped Counselor Yexhai. "Our science leads the galaxy. No primitive could surpass us." Vexthul pressed on. "They disabled our entire fleet without firing a shot. Our weapons cannot strike them. Their ships phased through every assault. We were helpless." Faces hardened with disbelief that slowly gave way to unease. "So," Thrak said carefully, "you claim a handful of ships bested 300? "Not bested, Counselor. They simply prevented combat, then offered friendship." That last word stunned the chamber. In 1,000 years of conquest, no foe had ever ended war with peace. While the Valaran elite wrestled with the incomprehensible, the humans turned their efforts to healing. Dr. Guy began transmitting culture and ideas to the stranded fleet. A patient teacher, he understood the Terrans' confusion and spoke gently. "Greetings, friends of the Empire. We realize this must seem strange. Humanity believes all who think can work together. We seek not conquest nor spoils, only discovery and companionship." Across dozens of ships, crews listened, stunned. Cooperation, equality, mutual aid, concepts utterly foreign to a culture built on domination. Many struggled to grasp them. Meanwhile, Su Yang, intelligence officer, tapped into Velaran chatter. "Admiral," she reported, "their fear is not of our weapons. They fear their own people's reaction. Their empire survives on intimidation. If word spreads that 12 humans neutralize their greatest fleet, the illusion of invincibility shatters. The empire itself could collapse." Keong Ho nodded slowly. "Then it seems they are less afraid of us than of the truth." "Exactly. And there is more, Admiral," Wu Jin continued. "From what I've gathered in their communications, they haven't fought a true battle in over a century. They rely on sheer numbers, arriving with overwhelming fleets until their enemies surrender, out of fear. This explained much of the Valaran's confusion. They had never faced an enemy who refused intimidation or defeat. On the science ship Discovery, engineer Haij Jin sifted through the alien systems. What she found stirred pity. "Commander," she told Wu Jin, "their technology is ancient. Some of these models haven't changed in 5 centuries. They gave up innovation long ago." Wu asked why. Her answer was blunt. "They didn't need to. When you always win through numbers, why bother making better ships?" The Empire had become a victim of its own dominance. With no challengers, growth had stopped. Humanity, meanwhile, had spent 50 years in constant struggle, adapting to every danger. Each obstacle taught them to think differently, to create something new. Each solution became a tool for the next challenge. On his fighter, pilot Jay Sun looped around the Valaran flagship, not to threaten, but for the thrill. "Feels like circling a mountain," he laughed, "a slow, predictable mountain." The alien crew could only watch as their massive vessel failed to track the darting craft. Dr. Bo Ram, still monitoring, noticed a shift. "Commander," she said to Wu Jin, "the stress markers are dropping. Some crews are curious now, not just afraid." She was right. The more the humans refused conquest, the more questions arose among the Velarans. Captain Dawn, commanding the supply ship, had been listening closely. "Admiral," she called Kyung-ho. "Some of their ships were damaged chasing us into the quantum fields. Permission to offer aid?" "Granted," Kyung-ho replied. "If they're hurt, we help." The sight stunned Valaran crews even more than defeat itself. Dawn's vessel drifted forward, offering medicine and repairs. Meanwhile, the Valaran High Council raged in emergency session. "Impossible!" Counselor Yexhai barked. "No primitive outmatches our science." "But if they do?" asked Counselor Mechval. "What becomes of our empire?" High Counselor Zathrak shared the dread. "If word spreads that humans disabled a fleet, rebellion will follow. An empire of 1,000 years could fall in days." He ordered Vexthal to suppress the truth, but Vexthal knew it was futile. Thousands had seen, and human broadcasts of cooperation already circulated. On the Harmony, Kyung-ho reviewed reports. Engineer Sin had restored Valaran power systems. Medic Hosak treated their wounded. Navigator MG guided damaged ships from the nebula. "Admiral," Comms Officer Nar reported, "some aliens are asking about our society, our ships, our methods." "Answer them," Kyung-ho said simply. "Knowledge is for sharing." Strategic Advisor Chan Wu compiled his analysis. "Admiral, their empire is like a house on sand, strong in appearance, fragile within. They rule through fear, but they've forgotten how to fight. If their people realize this truth, revolution," Kyung-ho finished grimly, "and it will be bloody." "Exactly," Wu agreed. "We may have started something that tears their civilization apart." Kyung-ho was silent. The humans had come only to explore, not to topple empires. Yet their superiority had exposed cracks they never meant to show. "What should we do?" he asked. Wu smiled faintly. "What humans always do. Find a creative solution that helps everyone." Yet even he knew this was greater than any challenge before. They hadn't just defeated a fleet. They had revealed the Empire's foundation was a lie. Now they had to prevent it from collapsing. 3 days later, the humans still lingered in the Kepler Nebula. But now, they were not alone. Valaran ships hovered nearby, their crews working with humans to repair systems and trade knowledge. Engineer Sin set up a workshop aboard a damaged cruiser, guiding Valaran engineers. "Your power grid is too rigid," she told Chief Engineer Cole, a tall, four-armed officer with a sharp mind. "It works fine when planned, but fails when unexpected damage comes." She installed adaptive controllers that learned and rerouted energy on their own. Cole watched in amazement. "But why help us? We tried to kill you." Sin only smiled. "Because that's what humans do. We help." This baffled the Valarans. Their society only aided their own kind and harmed outsiders. To help a recent enemy seemed absurd. Yet the humans kept doing it, without demand or deception. Slowly, some began to believe. Captain Dawn had turned her ship into a hospital. Hosak worked tirelessly on injured crews. "Your anatomy differs, but not greatly," he told Valaran medic Yalara as they treated a patient. "The body knows how to heal. We just assist." Yalara studied the devices, gentle tools that encouraged recovery instead of forcing it. "Our medicine relies on harsh drugs and surgery," she admitted. "Yours listens to the body." Hosak nodded. "That's the difference. We guide, not dominate." On the Discovery, Wu Jin launched a cultural exchange center. Humans and Valarans gathered, comparing histories and philosophies. Diplomat Ya Jin led many talks. 5 centuries ago," she explained to a circle of officers, "humans fought endlessly. Each nation sought power. We nearly destroyed Earth itself. Only then did we realize survival required cooperation." Captain Relm, listening intently, asked, "And you chose cooperation?" Yajin smiled. "We chose to live, and in time, we discovered it was not only safer, but more joyful." The word joy unsettled them. To the Valarans, work was duty, life was hierarchy. Yet younger officers watched humans laughing, joking, celebrating even in labor. They began to glimpse a way of living beyond fear. But Su Yang's intelligence feeds painted a darker picture. "Admiral," she reported, "news of our victory is spreading. Conquered species believe they too can rebel. They don't have our ships or tactics. If they rise now, they'll be slaughtered." This was the danger Chan Wu foresaw. "We've shown the galaxy the Empire is weak, but given no one the strength to replace it. If we walk away, rebellion will drown millions in blood." Kyung Ho frowned. "What do you suggest?" "We must help the Empire transform," Wu answered. "Not destroy it, but guide it towards something better. Risky. 12 ships could not overthrow 10,000 systems. But perhaps they could inspire change from within." The first sign came from an unlikely source, Captain Relm Mok, the Velaran officer moved by Yajin's words. Requesting a private audience with Kyung Ho aboard Harmony, he arrived tense but resolved. Through the translator, he spoke. "Admiral, I have served 40 years, seen our empire crush dozens of peoples, but never have I seen..." They had never known anything like what humans practiced. "What do you mean?" Kyung Ho asked. "You make rivals wish to become companions," the alien captain replied. "That is a force greater than any weapon we command." The admiral leaned forward, intrigued. "Are you suggesting that some among you are ready to try a new path?" "I am saying many are weary of ruling through fear. In just 3 days, we have witnessed what cooperation can achieve. Imagine what could be built in 3 years. This was precisely what the humans had hoped to hear. Yet, they understood caution was required. Change that came too fast could be as destructive as none at all. Dr. Guy joined in, offering his insight into social behavior. "Captain Remak, transformation is never easy. People cling to the security of what they know, even when something far better waits ahead." "I understand," Remak answered, "but some of us are prepared to risk it. The question is, will you aid us?" It was a simple query, but one layered with consequences. The humans had the ability to annihilate the Valaran Empire, but also the wisdom to know that ruin was not always the wisest path. "We will help," Kyung Ho said at last, "but we will do it in the human way, deliberately, cautiously, and with respect for all." Over the next days, small groups of Valaran officers began meeting with human crews. They exchanged ideas of science, philosophy, and governance. They spoke about what true strength meant, what freedom required, and what it felt like to work alongside rather than against. Navigator Mi taught alien pilots how to chart dangerous space by riding natural forces instead of resisting them. Engineer He Jin revealed machines that adapted and learned instead of obeying blindly. Most of all, the humans taught through example, demonstrating that power need not be cruel, advancement need not be arrogant, and victory need not leave others broken. Not every Valaran accepted these ideas. Many still clung to the belief that dominance defined strength and that cooperation revealed weakness. Yet enough began to reconsider that another future became possible. Perhaps the Empire need not collapse. Perhaps it could evolve into something greater. 2 months after the confrontation in the Kepler Nebula, the sector had become something unprecedented, a crossroads where former adversaries explored the future together. Supreme Commander Vextal now stood on his flagship's bridge, transformed. Where once weapons displays filled the walls, communication relays now linked him to human vessels and Valaran partners across the region. The transition had been anything but smooth. The High Council had demanded he erase the humans and bury what occurred. But news had traveled too far. Tales of humanity's impossible survival, followed by their generosity, had reached every corner of the Empire. "Commander," his communications officer announced, "we have another petition from the Zorali system. They request permission to send a delegation to meet the humans." Vexthul nodded. The Zorali were a people the Valarans had subjugated 2 centuries ago. Like many others, they had heard of humanity and wanted to learn this new way. "Grant their request," he said, "and provide them the standard Terran Compact packet." The Terran Compact was Admiral Kyung-ho's greatest creation. Not a treaty, not an alliance in the usual sense, but something entirely different. An accord where species worked as equals, sharing resources and knowledge for the good of all. What began as a small pact between humans and a handful of forward-thinking, Valarans had spread swiftly as more civilizations sought to join. Aboard the Harmony, Admiral Kyung-ho welcomed envoys from 17 different worlds. The conference chamber had been enlarged with modular sections to fit beings of varied forms and needs. "The core principle," he explained, "is that all contribute what they can, and all receive what they require. No one rules. We are partners in discovery and understanding." Captain Raymak, now the unspoken leader of the Valaran reformists, translated for newer delegates. Fluent in several human tongues, he had become adept at carrying human ideas into alien minds. "But how do you settle disputes?" asked Ambassador Sexalinda of the crystalline Silthera. "Without a central authority, how is order preserved?" It was the same concern raised in every gathering. Most galactic systems had always been pyramids of hierarchy, never circles of equals. The concept of cooperation in place of command felt alien to them. "We talk," Kyung-ho replied simply. "We deliberate until we—" They had won not by breaking an empire, but by transforming it. The Terran Compact had grown from a fragile idea whispered in the Kepler Nebula into a living force that spanned the stars. What began as an improbable partnership between humanity and a handful of Valaran reformers had become a coalition of dozens of civilizations, working together not through fear, but through trust. Cultural exchange officer Mi Young's university on the nebula's moon had become a beacon of knowledge. Humans lectured beside crystalline philosophers, Zorkali artists, and Sultara engineers. For the first time, species that had once lived in suspicion and isolation discovered truths no one people could have reached alone. Everywhere, collaboration bore fruit. Human adaptive design paired with Zorkali crystal work had yielded a starship, engine 3 times as efficient as anything that came before, clean and enduring. Artists and scientists reshaped cities and ships alike, blending traditions into something greater than the sum of their parts. Yet the Compact's rise split the Valaran Empire in 2. High Counselor Zethrak clung to conquest, rallying loyalists who feared the loss of control. But Supreme Commander Vexthul, who had seen firsthand the strength of cooperation, defied the High Council's order to destroy the humans. His simple refusal, "I will not make us less than we could be," became the pivot of history. 1 year later, the Kepler station gleamed as a symbol of the new age. Through its transparent walls, Admiral Kyung-ho watched 100 ships from 47 species working side by side. Scientists charted new quantum mysteries. Engineers raised a galactic communications array. Artists turned space itself into a canvas of living light. Vexthul joined him at the window, no longer a supreme commander, but now coordinator of compact defense. His authority was smaller, yet his purpose far greater. "When we first met," he said quietly, "I thought you were primitives, easy prey for the Empire. I am very glad I was wrong." Kyung-ho smiled. "And I never imagined we would build this. Yet here we are." Across the galaxy, change spread unevenly. The old empire still held thousands of systems in its grip. Other warlike civilizations watched the Compact with suspicion. Not everything was peaceful. Not everything was certain. But something fundamental had shifted. For the first time in galactic memory, there was a choice besides conquest. Partnership, not submission. Cooperation, not chains. What do you think comes next? Vexthul asked. Kyung-ho's eyes never left the starlit vista. What always comes next for humans? Challenges, solutions, and new friends along the way. If the old empire opposes us, we'll remind them of what we've shown everyone we've met. There is a better way to be strong. As if on cue, a new vessel appeared at the nebula's edge, its design alien to both men. A careful greeting pulsed through the station's comms, a voice from a people never before encountered. Kyung-ho lifted his communicator. Unknown vessel, this is Admiral Kyung-ho of the Terran Compact. Welcome. We'd be honored if you joined us for dinner and conversation. Vexthul chuckled, recognizing the familiar warmth. Some things about humans never changed, and that, he thought, was why everything else in the galaxy had. For humanity's greatest victory was not that they had defeated their enemies. It was that they had convinced them to dream of something better.